Thank you for participating in validation and standard setting. This training module should help you prepare and understand what to expect when attending a validation and standard setting workshop for one of Ohio's career technical education end-of-course exams. During this module, we will consider 4 questions to prepare you on the workshop. First, what are validation and standard setting? Second, how is content validity established? Third, how are performance standards established? And finally, what is your role as a subject matter expert? Let's begin by considering what validation is. When creating or revising a new exam, we want to be sure that the test we create is valid or that it measures what it is intended to measure. In the case of end-of-course assessments, we want to make sure the test accurately assesses a student's mastery of the competencies found in the course outline. When you can demonstrate that a test measures what it is intended to, through validation evidence collecting, it provides support for test score interpretation. There are different ways to validate an exam. For end-of-course exams, the method used is content validation. This method focuses on the adequacy and appropriateness of the test content. We will come back to this type of validity and talk about how and when we collect evidence to establish content validity for end-of-course exams. Now let's talk about performance standard setting. When discussing a test score, you may hear terms such as passing point, benchmark, or cutoff score. These are all different ways of referring to a performance standard, which is the score on an exam that reflects the minimum level of test performance required to be considered mastering the content. In order to be classified as passing the test, a test taker's score must be greater than or equal to the performance standard. We set the performance standard by collecting individual judgments on test items from subject matter experts. Now that we know what content validity is, how do we establish it for end-of-course exams? First, we use subject matter experts to identify key competencies in a course outline and develop a test blueprint. Then, they write test items linked directly to those competencies. Next, in a large panel format, those same subject matter experts conduct a technical accuracy review of every item in an end-of-course exam. Lastly, we collect individual subject matter expert ratings of essentiality and item quality. How do we establish performance standards for end-of-course exams? We start by defining what the minimally competent or minimally proficient student looks like. In a large panel format with a group of subject matter experts, we consider things like what a secondary high school learner looks like post-instruction. The minimally proficient student could also be an entry-level worker or apprentice, or someone entering college courses in post-secondary disciplines. These students are borderline course completers that subject matter experts worked with. They are the students that have done enough to pass, but they're not the top students or high performers. You can think of the minimally competent students as your C- students. We will discuss this concept in greater detail at the beginning of the validation and standard setting workshop that you are attending. Achievement in Ohio career technical education is defined and reported in 3 ordered categories. Students designated advanced have achieved the highest level of mastery. Students designated proficient have passed the exam and are considered to have mastered the course content. Students who score non-proficient have not passed the exam and have not mastered the content at this time. As a subject matter expert, you will determine what mastery looks like at each of these 3 different levels. In order to determine what mastery of content or minimally proficient looks like, let's consider this visual representation. Consider the boxes as the 3 ordered performance standard categories we just discussed. At the top are your advanced students. They are not only passing, they are considered high achievers. These are your A students. In the middle are the bulk of your students. They are proficient. These are the average students. At the bottom are the non-proficient students. These are your clearly failing students. What we're interested in for the workshop are the minimally proficient students who have achieved just enough to pass the test. What should you expect at the standard setting and validation workshop? For most career fields, the workshop is all day. You will arrive in the morning and check in. The workshop will begin with a skim orientation that will cover standard setting and validation in greater detail. During the orientation, you will have an opportunity to ask questions or get clarification about the process. You will then review a number of courses at your own pace. During all-day workshops, lunch will be served. Following lunch, you will return to reviewing your assigned courses. Once you've completed the courses which you've been assigned, you are done for the day. Now let's talk about what you will do as you review the test items. Using an iPad, you will review the complete set of questions from which the pre-tests and end-of-course exams will be created. This is what we refer to as the item bank. For most courses, the item bank includes both older test items and the new items written in the past year. Older items are re-rated to preserve them and grow the item banks. For each test item, you will make 4 separate judgments. This is a screenshot of the 4 individual judgments you will make about each test item. You will first be asked whether or not you think a minimally proficient test taker would answer the item correctly. You will then need to consider another type of student, the minimally advanced test taker. This would be the student who falls at or near the bottom of the high-performing group of students. You can think of the minimally advanced student as your A- student. You will need to decide if a minimally advanced test taker would answer this item correctly. We will talk about these 2 concepts in greater detail at the orientation on the day of the workshop. You will also be asked about item essentiality, which is a measure of how well the item covers or connects to the essential content in the competency being tested. A rating of 1 is low, and a rating of 4 is high. Finally, you rate the quality of the item. A rating of 1 indicates low quality, and a rating of 4 indicates a high-quality test item. We are often asked what happens to the data after the workshop. The judgments you make are averaged and linked to the test items in the end-of-course bank. After your review of the test items, they are reviewed by ODE staff. Then, the test items are field tested by the student population. Once we've received enough field test data, SEAT will create the final test forms. The field test data serves as student input. Your judgments from the workshop serve as instructor input. These data are balanced with content coverage across the course outline to create 2 40-item test forms, a pre-test and a post-test. We hope that this module helped to prepare you to attend the Standard Setting and Validation Workshop at SEAT. Please be sure you are registered with SEAT before attending the workshop. If you have any questions, contact the SEAT recruiter. We will have a brief orientation the day of the workshop to answer any remaining questions that you may have. We look forward to seeing you.